So in the first video in this module, we talked about the basics of DAWs and their features. In this video, we're going to talk about some very practical matters of how to actually get audio into a DAW, either by importing existing audio files or recording new audio directly into the DAW, and also some basics about how to navigate around our tracks in our views. So we can bring any audio file we want, pretty much, in just about any format into a DAW, like Reaper. And I want to talk about some of the possibilities of what we might want to bring in. The first is a special collection of sound files that are available to you as part of this course called the EarSketch Sound Library. And these are about 2,000 audio loops that were created for us by two amazing musicians. Young Guru, who's best known for his longtime collaboration with Jay-Z, and Richard Devine, who's a live experimental electronic musician. We'll actually see a video of a performance of his in Module 5 of the course. But he's also a wonderful sound designer that's worked for a number of large companies ranging from Apple to Sony to BMW. So they've created sounds for us that are organized across different packs of sounds where you can use things across different genres that kind of, and different instruments, and they're organized as long as you use them in the same folder, they all kind of sound good together. So let me show you what I mean. I'm going to go over to Reaper here, and here we are in Reaper. And I have my folder of sounds, and you can download this off of the course website. Here we have a Richard Devine folder, and we have a Young Guru folder. Richard Devines are organized by genre, and then within that by instrument. So if I pick anything within a genre, like any of the Richard Devine dubstep sounds, they'll all sound pretty good together. Young Gurus are organized by pack here. So there's about 40 or 50 packs, and any of the sounds inside of these packs, again, kind of designed to really fit well together. So I'm going to go ahead into this Y01 pack here and pick Y01 guitar. To bring it into Reaper, all I have to do is drag it onto my timeline. And so I can choose it for it to start at any measure that I want. In this example, I'll have it start at the beginning, measure 1. I let go, and then you can see the waveform there. And I can go ahead and listen to this. And there you get it. Now, of course, you're not limited to these sounds. You can bring in your own music or anything else you have the rights to bring in. One thing to think about, though, when you're bringing things in are the file formats. All of these files in the sound library we're providing you are WAV files, and they're actually those acidized WAV files that have the beat data encoded in them, so they'll easily stretch to any tempo that you might have set. If you're bringing in a lossy format, like an MP3 or an AAC, just remember that's not going to end up with as good sound quality as if you start with a file that's in a lossless format, like WAV or AIFF or something like that. So whenever possible, the DAWs will support any file format you could possibly imagine for sound. But whenever possible, you want to restrict yourselves to the lossless formats so that you know you're starting off your editing session in your project with the best sound quality possible. You also need to be wary of copyright concerns. It's not usually okay to just take a sample off of your favorite CD and use it in your own work without permission of the copyright holder. There are a lot of other options that are available to you, though. If you Google sound library or a loop library or something like that, you'll find lots of companies that will sell you sound libraries or loop libraries in lots and lots of different styles, and they will sell you along with that the rights, the license to use it in your own music. And there's also a lot of free content out there. A lot of it is licensed under the Creative Commons license, where the copyright holders have given you permission automatically to use their sounds under certain conditions, and those conditions can vary. Sometimes they'll just require that you give them credit, attribution, and sometimes they'll require that you only use it for non-commercial contexts, or that you share your own work under the same Creative Commons license that they used. Two websites that are wonderful sources of Creative Commons licensed sounds are freesound.org and ccmixture.org. So I encourage you to check both of those out. So now that we have audio in the DAW, in the DAW, I want to show you some basics of how to navigate our way around the DAW with sound. We'll look at the transport controls, setting tempo and meter, adjusting the playback cursor, using the basic mixing controls on tracks, and zooming in and out. So I'm going to go back to Reaper and show you exactly what I mean here. So the transport controls are down here. They're pretty standard, like you've seen on any cassette deck or CD player or anything you've ever used. Rewind, stop, play, pause. This fast forward will go to the very end, the last bit of audio you have in your project. Record we'll use in a second when we're recording directly in. And then if I want something to loop around forever, from, when it gets to the end of the project to go back to the beginning, I just enable looping. This obviously counter shows us in terms of measures and beats and subbeats, or in terms of minutes and seconds, where we are in time. And then over here, I can set the tempo of my project in beats per minute. So I can just click on here. Right now it's at 120 beats per minute. If I want it to be 144, I just type that in and I hit return, and I'm there. And you can see how everything is adjusted accordingly. One note is that if you've imported an audio file, that's not going to change its tempo automatically, at least in Reaper when I do that. So what I usually want to do is set my tempo first, and then import or record my audio. If I'm not sure what tempo I want, I can also just click my mouse a bunch of times on the BPM logo here, and it will automatically set the tempo for me to whatever I click. So in this case, I clicked at 139. I'm going to switch this back to 120 for now. If I want to set the meter of my project, right now it's at 4/4 times. So that's 4 beats, a quarter note each, every measure. If I want to change it to say 3/4, again, I just type that in, and I'm set. And again, I'll change that back to 4/4 for now. So that's my transport controls and tempo. When I play something back, I can actually see a playback cursor scrolling across here. And if I want to position the playback cursor in a particular spot, you can see as I move up by this, this area that's showing me the location in the track, my cursor turns into an I-beam, and I can just click wherever I want. And then playback will start from there. I can also drag the triangle. When I move up there, my cursor becomes a hand, and find the place that I want, to scrub to the place that I want. Like so. That sounds kind of humorous, I know, but it can actually be useful if you're not sure what measure something started in, and you need to find the right spot. You can drag until you hear the right thing. Now I want to look at the mixing controls, which we have access to over here. I'm going to go to the View menu and click on Mixer, and I can access them down here as well. These are basic controls that I might want to use in order to control how things are playing back on my track. So I'm going to set this up in loop mode right now and just play it. And the first thing I'm going to do is bring the volume way down so that you can actually hear me talking over the sound. Maybe not quite that quiet. And I can see my playback levels here with these green meters. So if I want to mute the track temporarily, I hit the M. If I want to solo it so nothing else is playing, this will mute all the other tracks. There aren't any other tracks right now, so you're not hearing that. Let's go ahead and stop that. And then the final thing I might want to do is zoom, but either in the horizontal direction or the vertical direction. So I can use these plus and minus signs to zoom in and out horizontally and vertically. I can also just drag the scroll bar here and use that to go in and out. So those are some of the basics of getting around the DAW. What I want to talk about now is the basics of recording audio directly into the DAW. And we're going to talk about a few key things here. Setting levels appropriately, monitoring my recording, using a metronome, taking multiple takes if I want to try something a bunch of times and pick the best one, and normalizing a recording. So let's go back to Reaper. I'm going to keep that guitar track there. I'm going to add a new track that I'm going to record onto. So I'm going to go to the track menu here and choose Insert New Track. And there we are. And the first thing I need to do is record enable it. So there's this little red circle there. When I hit record on that, then I've armed this track for recording. And what you can see here is that instead of those green levels showing me the playback level of my track, I've got these red meters showing me the input level of my sound. And now I have a mic here, right here. And so as I'm talking into the mic, you can see the levels coming through. And as we talked about in Module 1, when we talked about bit width, we want to make sure that we're making good use of our bit width. We don't want it to be really quiet, because then we're going to end up kind of wasting a lot of our resolution in our amplitude axis. But it also can't be too loud, or we're going to end up with clipping and distortion. So if I turned up my level really, really high here and shouted, la, like that, you see those that red bar at the very end stuck on. You can see it down here on the mixer as well. It didn't disappear, and that's to show that I had some clipping. That's a warning that I need to turn my level down. And obviously, if it's too low, you can see that it's just not getting high enough. You can't actually control the input gain, these levels directly within Reaper. This is something that's dependent on the audio hardware that you're using. If you're using a built-in mic on your laptop, so it'd probably be this gain would be set in your sound control panel or your sound system preferences. If you're using external audio hardware like I am right now, there's actually a physical knob on my audio interface that's letting me control this level. So this just depends on what your particular setup happens to be. So I think I'm ready to do a recording now. One more thing I need to do first is I want to be able to synchronize with the other track and with this timing grid. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on my metronome. If I want to control some details of the metronome, I can go to this options menu here and go down to metronome and pre-roll. There's a whole dialog box here with lots of settings about not just how the metronome sounds and when it plays back, but also lets me set a number of pre-roll measures here. So what it's going to do, I have 2 pre-roll measures set there. It's going to play my metronome for 2 measures before it ever starts recording, before it ever gets to measure 1. So I can get a sense of what the tempo is, and I can start at measure 1 right on time. So I've turned that on, and I think I'm good to go now, and I'm going to go ahead and hit record. This is a recording. Yeah. Okay, so if I really thought that was horrible and I didn't want to use it at all, I could hit delete all, and I'd never have to listen to it again. But if I like it, I can hit save all, and it'll go ahead and save that for me. And now I'm going to go ahead and solo this so I can hear just what this sounds like, what I just recorded. This is a recording. Yeah. Okay, so there's a couple of problems with what I recorded there. One is that it's too soft, so I'm going to go ahead and turn my levels up a little bit more here. But the other one, which is also important, is a little bit subtle, but I think in the background, especially when I wasn't talking on the recording, you could hear a little bit of the first track coming through. And the reason for that, even though that track was muted because I had soloed this track, the reason for that is that the first track, along with the metronome click for that matter, was playing through speakers that are here in the studio, and my microphone was picking up the sound coming out of those speakers. So that's usually a bad thing. The whole reason of doing multi-track recording is I want to be able to isolate each thing separately on a different track. If I'm getting a metronome, something I definitely don't want in my final piece of music, then I don't have an easy way to get rid of that if that's actually appearing in the audio I'm recording on my track. And the same thing if track 1 is bleeding over into track 2 here. And so what I really want to do is I want to turn on some headphones here, put those on my ears, and that's where I want to listen to this guitar riff, and that's where I want to listen to the metronome clicking. So I can hear it, but it's not going to come into my microphone, so I get some isolation. So I'm going to go ahead and try to record this again with the louder level and with using monitoring instead of the speakers to hear the other tracks. This is an audio recording. Yeah. And I'll go ahead and save that. I put my mic down and take my headphones off now. So the levels on this look a lot better.
This is an audio recording.
Okay. So now what I have here are 2 takes on this track. I have this one that's highlighted. That's the most recent one I took. But the first one I took, it didn't get deleted. It's still there. And so I can actually right-click here, and I can, or control-click if you don't have a 2-button mouse on your Mac, and I can go to these takes, and I can look at them. I can go next take or previous take to switch which one I'm using. And if there's one that I know I'm not going to use anymore, I can delete it so that I just kind of get rid of it. And so this can be a very useful strategy if you want to try something out a bunch of times when you're recording. You're not sure which one is going to end up being the best. So you want to kind of keep them all there and then be able to audition the different ones and pick the best at the end. The other thing I can do here on that same menu is I can go to item processing, and I can choose to normalize items. An item is simply just a session of audio that I recorded. If I do that, it's going to automatically kind of boost the levels, the amplitude levels on this a little bit. So if I record it a little bit too soft, or even a lot too soft, and I normalize something, it's going to kind of bring everything up to a consistent amplitude level. It's not, and that can be helpful when I'm editing and adjusting volumes and things later on to have brought that up. So everything's kind of at a consistent and relatively equivalent point. So that covers the basics of recording that I wanted to discuss in this, this module. And what we've done here is to, again, look at how to import audio and some considerations to think about when we're importing audio. And we just looked at how to record audio and some various considerations with that. And then some basic ways to get around in terms of playing things and mixing them and navigating around the DAW. In the next video, we're going to talk about, now that we've recorded or imported audio, what do we actually do with it? How can we transform it and edit it in various ways?